Throughout history, people have reported paranormal phenomena. But unlike previous eras, we now live in an age of recording technology. Investigators capture audio, security cameras record unexplained events, phone systems preserve emergency calls. This is the era where paranormal claims can be documented. Today we examine paranormal cases with audio evidence. We will explore real recordings captured by investigators, security systems, and emergency responders. We will break down exactly what can be heard on these recordings and examine what the audio evidence actually reveals. The investigation of paranormal phenomena through audio recording represents a significant shift in how we document the unexplained. When someone claims to hear a ghost or experience paranormal activity, we can now ask for evidence. We can request recordings. We can analyze the audio scientifically. Several documented cases have produced audio recordings that have become central to paranormal research and investigation. Let us begin with one of the most significant cases of documented paranormal audio. In 1974, paranormal investigator George Meek conducted experiments in his laboratory designed to capture voices of the deceased through electronic recording devices. He called this phenomenon electronic voice phenomena, or FP. Meek's experiments involved recording sessions with a tape recorder, a radio tuned to static frequencies, and various electronic equipment. During these sessions, Meek claimed to capture voices speaking through the electronic interference. On Meek's recordings, listeners report hearing faint voices emerging from the static and electronic noise. The voices appear to speak words and phrases. They seem to respond to questions posed by the investigator. Meek preserved these recordings. They have been played for thousands of people. Many who listen report hearing voices speaking coherently within the audio. However, acoustic experts who have analyzed the same recordings note that they are hearing what is called pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in random noise. This is crucial to understand. The same recording can be heard very differently by different listeners depending on their expectations. If someone is told they will hear a voice speaking a specific phrase, they often hear exactly that phrase when listening to ambiguous audio. If they are told only that they will hear random static, they often hear only noise. This psychological phenomenon of pareidolia is well documented in scientific literature. The recordings Meek captured, while fascinating to paranormal enthusiasts, do not constitute definitive proof of communication with the deceased when subjected to rigorous acoustic analysis. The audio exists. The recordings are real. But the interpretation of what the audio means depends heavily on the listener's prior beliefs and expectations. Let us examine another significant case involving paranormal audio documentation. In 2002, a paranormal investigation group conducted an investigation in a reportedly haunted castle in England. They brought professional-grade audio recording equipment. They set up microphones in various locations. They conducted the investigation in darkness, with no one physically present to make sounds. During their investigation, they captured audio of what sounds like footsteps, doors closing, and voices speaking distinct words. The investigators transcribed what they believed the voices said. They played the recordings for other paranormal researchers. Multiple investigators reported hearing the same words and phrases. The recordings were presented as evidence of paranormal activity. The audio was broadcast on paranormal television programs. It became cited as documented evidence of ghosts within the castle. However, when acoustic engineers analyzed the recordings, they identified several important details. First, some of the sounds could be explained by the castle's structure responding to temperature changes, building settlement, or rodent activity. Second, the audio quality was poor enough that multiple interpretations were possible. Third, when the audio was played to people without being told what they should hear, their interpretations of what the voices said varied widely. Fourth, the investigators themselves were making sounds during the investigation that they may not have been consciously aware of creating. The paranormal audio recording from this investigation is genuine. It exists. It can be heard. But whether it provides evidence of paranormal activity depends entirely on whether we accept the investigator's interpretation of ambiguous audio or whether we consider alternative explanations for the recorded sounds. One of the most widely circulated paranormal audio recordings involves a telephone call allegedly made by a deceased individual to a radio station. In 1976, a woman called into a talk radio program claiming that she was receiving calls from her recently deceased husband. She reported that he was calling her on her telephone line. The radio host asked her to describe what she heard during these calls. The woman described hearing breathing, periods of silence, and occasionally faint speech. However, when technicians examined the telephone line and communication systems, they found no evidence of external calls being made to the woman's telephone. In 2008, a business in Massachusetts reviewed their security camera footage from the previous night and discovered audio recordings they could not explain. On the footage and audio, investigators heard footsteps, doors opening and closing, and voices speaking in whispered tones. No one was present in the building at the time. The building had been locked and secured. The business owner consulted paranormal investigators. The audio recording was genuine. The security system had functioned properly, but the sounds recorded had mundane explanations rather than paranormal ones. Another significant case involves audio recordings made during an alleged poltergeist event. In 1983, a family in Ohio reported experiencing poltergeist activity. Objects moved without apparent cause. Loud knocking sounds emanated from the walls. The family contacted paranormal investigators. The investigators brought audio recording equipment and recorded numerous sessions over several weeks. On the recordings, we hear loud banging sounds, what sounds like objects falling, and various noises that seem to occur without visible physical cause. However, when acoustic engineers examined the audio, they noted several important details. The sounds, while loud and startling, were consistent with the house settling, water hammer effects in the plumbing system. The most likely explanation was that the family was experiencing anxiety and interpreting normal house sounds as paranormal. The investigators, arriving with equipment and expectations of finding paranormal activity, may have inadvertently suggested to the family that the sounds were indeed paranormal, reinforcing their interpretation and potentially increasing their anxiety and vigilance for unusual sounds. Let us consider a case involving audio documentation of alleged demonic possession. In 1995, an exorcism was conducted in Spain. The session was audio recorded with the permission of the Catholic Church. On the recording, we hear a woman's voice changing dramatically. The recording circulated through paranormal research communities as evidence of genuine demonic possession. Paranormal researchers presented it as proof that demonic entities can possess human bodies and speak through them. The audio seemed to provide clear evidence for supernatural evil. Another case involves audio recordings made during a supposedly haunted hotel investigation. In 2010, paranormal investigators stayed overnight in a hotel reported to be actively haunted. They placed recording devices in hallways and guest rooms. When hotel management reviewed the recordings, they identified the sources. Footsteps were guests moving around, doors opening were legitimate hotel operations. The audio recordings were real. The sounds were captured accurately. But the paranormal interpretation was incorrect. Let us examine a case involving emergency response audio. In 1997, emergency dispatchers received a call from a woman claiming that she was experiencing paranormal activity in her home. The call was recorded by the emergency dispatch system. Emergency responders arrived at the home and found a woman experiencing a severe panic attack and acute anxiety disorder. She was not experiencing paranormal activity. She was experiencing a documented mental health crisis. The recording captured genuine fear and genuine symptoms, but the cause was psychological rather than paranormal. The woman received psychiatric evaluation and treatment. Her condition improved with appropriate medical care. In 2005, paranormal investigators conducted a session in a historically significant cemetery. They brought high-quality digital audio recording equipment. However, acoustic engineers who examined the recordings noted that the sounds were consistent with the cemetery's acoustic properties, wind patterns in the location, and animal sounds that could be mistaken for human voices. When the same recording location was investigated under controlled conditions with acoustic specialists present, no paranormal sounds were captured. The difference was that during the controlled investigation, there was awareness of the normal sources of sound in the environment. Another crucial case involves audio recordings made using devices specifically designed to capture paranormal communication. Modern paranormal investigators often use equipment that rapidly scans through radio frequencies, creating what sounds like white noise. Investigators claim that spirits can speak through this noise. They record sessions and later listen for voices within the static. When acoustic specialists analyze these recordings, they note that pareidolia is highly active. The human brain, when listening to white noise and being told that voices might be present, frequently perceives speech patterns within the random noise. This is not evidence of paranormal communication. This is evidence of how the human brain processes audio information. The recordings made with these devices are genuine. The audio equipment functions properly. But the interpretation of voices within the noise is a psychological phenomenon rather than evidence of actual spirit communication. Multiple studies have shown that people hearing the same recording interpret the sounds differently based on their prior beliefs and suggestions about what they should hear. Let us consider a case involving audio from a purportedly haunted house. In 2003, a family moved into a historic home and reported experiencing strange sounds, including footsteps, knocking, and whispered voices. They recorded audio of the phenomena. Professional paranormal investigators reviewed the recordings and agreed they seemed to document paranormal activity. However, when the house was professionally inspected, engineers identified numerous sources for the sounds. The house had settling issues that created knocking sounds. The plumbing system produced sounds that traveled through walls. The wind created noises that seemed to come from inside. The acoustic characteristics of the old house amplified and echoed normal sounds in unusual ways. Once the family understood the sources of the sounds, they no longer interpreted them as paranormal. The recordings, while genuinely capturing sounds from the house, what paranormal audio recordings consistently capture is human perception, human emotion, and human interpretation of ambiguous sensory information. The recordings document real events occurring in real locations, but whether those events are paranormal or whether they represent ordinary phenomena interpreted through paranormal frameworks remains a question that audio evidence alone cannot definitively answer. The most important lesson from paranormal cases with audio evidence is that the presence of audio documentation does not automatically validate paranormal claims. Audio can be misinterpreted. Audio can be ambiguous. Audio can record ordinary phenomena that seem extraordinary without proper context. Rigorous analysis, scientific evaluation, and consideration of alternative explanations are essential when evaluating paranormal audio evidence. Professional audio engineers, acoustic specialists, and skeptical investigators consistently find ordinary explanations for paranormal audio cases when they apply rigorous analysis. The phenomena captured are real. The recordings are genuine. But the paranormal interpretations often dissolve when subjected to proper investigation and analysis. Paranormal audio evidence, while fascinating and often disturbing to listen to, has not provided definitive proof of paranormal phenomena when evaluated by acoustic specialists and scientific investigators. The audio captures genuine mystery and genuine human experience. But documented cases suggest that the mysteries resolve into ordinary explanations when properly investigated.